How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the channel. If this is your first time here, my name's Cody, and this is going to be the introduction to my diesel swap project, part 1. So behind me, we have the 2001 Volkswagen Golf here that has an ALH TDI, and we're going to be taking that out and sticking it into this 2002 manual Dodge Dakota. It's going to be made into an NSG 370. If you have any questions of like why I'm doing this swap, you can go to my previous video. I did an introduction, a walk around of the project vehicles here. Today, we're just going to be messing with this Volkswagen Golf. There's way too much to do on this. I have way too many things that I have to label the wiring harness, get that out. There's a ton of vacuum hoses. Some vacuum hoses aren't connected. There's just a lot of stuff that we have to go through to get this prepped before I can take it out. On top of that, I paid $1,500 for this Volkswagen, and I'd like to squeeze as many pennies as I can out of this car before I junk it. I need the tires, the automatic transmission, probably interior parts, the hood, the fenders. I'm going to strip as much as I can off of it, and I might not even show that on camera, but I have to be gentle. I can't just start cutting things and ripping the engine out. I have to be kind of strategic about it. So we're going to get this thing started. I want to show you guys how easy this thing starts up, and we'll go from there. So like I said, this is a 2001 Volkswagen Golf. 282,000 miles on this original motor. Still has the EGR connected up to it. I just noticed that there's a couple vacuum lines that aren't connected. They look like they're going to the I don't know if that's the N75 valve or that, but it looks important and it's not hooked up. There's some tape around this right here. It's just kind of a cobbled mess, and that's okay. This glorified screen door of an air filter is on there too. I'm not a big fan of that, but it's just how it came. So I have to label the wiring harness to the injection pump, get everything organized and set before I can just take it out. And so everything's got to be disconnected. It's going to be a big job, but that's okay. Now before I do anything else, I wanted to show you how easily this thing starts up. No tuners, no anything. It's a bone stock vehicle. The glow plugs didn't even cycle for a long time. And that was a complete cold start. Didn't take much for it to get started. The exhaust is clean. Should also say the reason I had to connect this battery was because it has some sort of parasitic draw inside the system, and I'll bet you it's because there's a massive subwoofer in the back and there's probably some short somewhere in the wiring. But the factory wiring harness, I'm pretty sure, is fine. Not the best wiring, but I probably couldn't do any better. Okay, so I'm starting to get this front cowl off, and I removed 2 bolts here, 2 bolts here, and this is already starting to get really loose. Came down here, and most of the radiator coolant is draining out. This AC line is going to have to be removed. I already got the marker lights removed with the bumper. All these wiring harnesses are probably going to have to be unclipped. All right, it's ready to come off. There we go. Next, I think what I'm going to do is take out the battery tray and the air box. That'll give me more room to get to this wiring harness for the alternator and things back in here. This is the main wiring harness that I'm going to need to be very careful with when I pull that out. I'll probably pull this intake off, intercooler piping. So this is the mass airflow sensor, I believe. Definitely want to be keeping that. I know you can't see it on camera, but these fuel lines are really badly cracked. and weathered, and so they're just old for being 24 years old. They're probably gonna have to be replaced. Probably, in fact, it'd be a smart thing to replace them. But for now, I'm just putting plastic bags over the things that I don't want dirt to get into. So I removed the wiper blades, and this is slowly coming up bit by bit. One of these is for the transmission, one of them's for the engine. So I only need one of these. I have to pull the main wiring harness, which is running down here, and then go into the cab and get the wires from the cab too. So this is probably the most important part of the wiring harness that goes to the injection pump, glow plugs, etc. Okay, a little update here. So a lot of progress has been made. You can kind of see the wiring harness sticking out over the side. Just a lot of unplugging wires, unplugging hoses, plugging things so they don't leak all over the driveway, labeling things. It's just been a huge mess. That's not really worth filming. It's just busy work that it has to get done. All that's left, finally have the engine mounts exposed. So this here, this one here, remove the power steering pump to get access to it. And then way back here, you can't even see it, the exhaust, and then both the drive lines. I'm just gonna cut the left one here, the driver's side CV axle is bad. This one probably isn't that long before it goes out too, so I'm not gonna save them. I'm just gonna cut them. It'll be a lot easier to then lift it forward around this AC lines. All right, so it's the next day. Got both the axles cut and the exhaust cut as well. Down here, the CV axle is just hollow tube. This axle here was actually solid for some reason instead of hollow like the other one. And then, can't see it, but I cut the exhaust underneath here and removed this bottom mount. The wiring harness is all disconnected on both sides. It's all unconnected from the vehicle except for the engine mounts. I think this thing's ready to come out. Gosh, that's a lot of wires. Vacuum line there. Alright, so the engine's on the ground on a moving blanket so I don't hurt anything with the block. Unbolted all the transmission bolts, and I'm going to try and get this thing out. Excuse me, off. Fast forward a little bit and already have the dash out. I didn't film that because it's a lot of work going underneath the dash, unplugging all these things. It wouldn't have made for good film anyway. So all you got to do is undo the dash, undo all the HVAC controls, undo the glove box, get all the bolts undone, get the fuse box out, the headlights, the center console, all the wiring underneath, the ignition, the steering wheel, the gauge cluster, and everything else. And it's just that easy. So right now I have this entire, I guess you'd call this the subframe of the subframe dash or something. I don't think anyone would actually buy this, but I think it'll be easier once I remove this to get better access to the wires. So I'm going to do my best to remove it. Really all I need is the wires on this side. Everything else over there is pretty much useless to me, but I'm trying to go as slow as I can and save all these parts. And you can see, I'm just throwing it back here, the airbags, the plastic pieces of the dash. Someone might want to buy these, and it's worth keeping. So I wanted to take the entire wiring harness out and then lay it out on the ground and see what I need to keep and get rid of with a wiring diagram, but it's kind of obvious that I don't need this wiring harness here that goes along this running board. Same with the other side. Those wires are for the HVAC controls. So I don't need most of these wires. I'm just going to cut them now, and hopefully it won't come back to bite me later. I was almost done with this project and I was running out of light. I had to get the headlamp out and get all this done before work tomorrow. I cut all the wiring harnesses that I needed to on the interior side of the cab. The only problem was on the firewall side of the engine bay, there's two holes where the wiring harness goes through into the cab. And I had to use my Sawzall and cut one big trough out in order to take the entire wiring harness from the interior out. So the relays, the fuse box, all those big bundles of wires all had to come out of one big hole. I essentially totaled the entire car, but at this point, I don't think that matters. All right, so the donor car is officially done being a donor car. It's given me everything from the engine, a transmission I can sell, the wiring harness that I needed for the engine, and all these body or interior parts to sell on the market. So the wiring harness, 90% of these wires I actually don't need. Now, I didn't want to cut them in the vehicle because I didn't want to accidentally cut something I did need and then sell off the vehicle and have to go searching for parts. So my thought was I'll take this out, lay it on the ground, go over with the wiring diagram and make sure I keep the wires that I need and get rid of the things that I don't. This subwoofer was in the back of the car. I think it's like some massive 12-inch subwoofer or something, pretty funny, with an amp. So that can be sold for a couple $100, glove box, dash, headlights, flex plate, multiple interior engine parts. Got a brake booster here, transmission that I don't need, torque converter. So all these parts can be sold and I can recoup some of the money that I spent just to get this engine. And then the Volkswagen itself, I could probably get maybe $500 just for a rolling shell of a parts car. So all in all, I think I'll come close to breaking even. Now, next week's video is going to be cleaning up this engine. There is so much grease and grime that you can't even touch it without your hands just being black with grease. And it's really time to clean it up, get rid of some of the hoses, the intake pipes, stuff like that. And again, that'll be more in depth. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. This diesel swap project is just kicking off and we're only getting started. This is just the parts that I need to put in the Dakota. So stick around. Hope to see you in the next one. Take care.